Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Emilio Ramirez, Oxnard Housing Director, in front of you to present the fiscal year 21-22 budget for the Oxnard Housing Authority. First, for the public housing budget, HUD requires that we present a budget to HUD by the 1st of July. So we're in front of you today to approve that budget and submit it by that date. The HUD program for public housing defines the budget on a per public housing site basis, something that they call asset management property. And that is defined in, I'm going to show you in a little bit, but the overall budget is just over $7.1 million for that program. That HUD formula that establishes that program is based on what it costs to run the public housing sites. And you can see on screen the formula that is used for renting utilities and then for establishing the eligible subsidy. The eligible subsidy is then defined by HUD at a current rate of 96% of what is eligible. So they don't actually give us what we need to fund the program, they give us some percentage of it. So on screen, you can see the various public housing sites, in other words, the items that they call asset management projects, Colonia, Felicia Court, Pleasant Valley, Plaza Vista, the various scattered sites, and Palm Vista. The public housing income is mostly derived from rent, as you can see, and that rent showed an increase of $98,000 over the last fiscal year. But it also includes a operational subsidy, which is that percentage that we described earlier, and management fees that come for the sites. And so the overall project income increased by $175,000 from the 2021-2022 program year. But the expenses also increased. And so the administrative expenses are at $3.2 million, up by 30. The maintenance expense up by 259. General expense, other expenses also increased. So the expenses increased at a higher rate than the revenue. For the Housing Choice Voucher Program, or what we define to be the Section A program, the Housing Authority operates 1,890 vouchers, which is divided up amongst a variety of different kinds of vouchers. Section 8 standard, mainstream vouchers, VASH. We're about to get a new allocation of emergency housing vouchers. So there are differences relative to the population that is served by that voucher. That program is comprised of two components. One, the housing assistance payments, which is the money that we use to provide rental assistance to the landlords, and the second being administration. And the first, the housing assistance payment, is just under $22.5 million. The second is an allocation for the operation of the program, again, based on congressional appropriations on a per percentage basis of what it costs to run that program. This year, 82% of the whole. And that 82% is what causes the gap that we're going to show you in a little bit. The voucher program has a deficit of $551,000. It's an increase in that deficit, and that is largely based on, number one, that reduction in the federal pro rata appropriation for the cost they need, down to 82% this year. But we did increase HAP, which means that we were able to assist more people, despite that we are showing a decrease or an increase in gap. So on the plus side, we were able to assist the $1.2 million more in HAP assistance, but we showed an increase in the administration, largely cost from salary increases, and therefore showing an increase in deficits. The Housing Choice Voucher Program includes the distinction here in income versus expenses at $551,000 gap. The financial impact is that we have a gap that needs to get filled from the COCC, or the Central Operating Cost Center, at $400,000, and a gap for public housing at $302,000. Thankfully, we have a reserve of $9 million that we can easily cover that. And for the Housing Choice Voucher Program, we described at $551,000. Thankfully, we have that reserve at $1.5 million. I should mention that those reserves are generated over the course of time, because sometimes that congressional appropriation, is 82% this year, but sometimes it was more than 100, and so those reserves are generated for this exact purpose. So staff is asking the Board of Commissioners to adopt the resolution approving the operating budget for the public housing program at $7.1 million, and to use unrestricted cash to fund the deficit, and then adopt the resolution for the Section 8 program at $25.1 million to $8 million for the 22 fiscal year, and adopt the resolution for filling a $551,000 cash deficit from those reserves as mentioned earlier. Thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.